Okay, so today I'm going to be talking about how to properly min-max a character in preparation of 1.4. Some of the things that you need to be doing, before the patch anyways, and then also once the patch hits on how to actually build your character with the gear that you may have been saving specifically for that purpose. I'm going to talk about a few of the new mechanics, a few of the changes that I've been made aware of today, and how they interact with my playstyle, and hopefully it's going to be something that's going to help players in the future. So the first thing I want to talk about is the armor cap. Just give a really quick overview for anyone that doesn't currently understand. The armor cap scales by world tier bracket. So in tier 1, the armor cap is different than tier 2. In tier 2, the armor cap, it requires more armor to cap out your character at 60% mitigation, which is currently the cap in the PTS. But I do have it on good authority that it's going to be raised to 70% mitigation in the future. It just currently hasn't been in the PTS, and I'll talk about that in a minute. In World Tier 3, it costs more armor to upgrade to cap out mitigation than Tier 2, and in Tier 4, it costs the most, particularly in the ballpark of about 11,500 armor to cap out your mitigation at 60% right now. But when they up that to 70%, I think it's going to require significantly more. Or if they change proportionally, maybe it will require the same amount to cap out at 70%, but I don't see that happening, because what that's going to do is just perpetuate the previous meta that we had where everyone built DPS builds and had maxed out armor. I like the idea of raising it to 70% and then requiring something ridiculous like 15,000 armor or 14,000 armor instead of 11,000 armor to cap out at 70%. But anyways, that's why it may change sometimes when you go into the dark zone. That's why it may change when you switch to a different world tier to help a friend. Your armor cap is variable by world tier. Now, another thing that I wanted to talk about just really quickly before I forget is that 1 is none no longer procs per pellet with shotguns. It now procs per shot. So as you can see here, I'm firing shots, and sometimes it procs, but most of the time it doesn't. It's about a 50-50 chance per shot now, instead of nearly a 100% chance to not consume the bullet when you actually land a full headshot with a shotgun. I am getting lucky here. It procced 4 times in a row, but then it didn't twice in a row. And if this was the old system, that almost 100% would have procced every single time I shot. I could fire nearly infinitely with this double barrel sawed-off, which is not an intended interaction, and I'm glad that they've changed that. Now, another thing is that while I'm going to try and show you the meta as much as possible, it's not actually going to be possible in some senses, because everyone on the PTS is currently using the MG5, which is not an intended gun. It's actually a survival gun that somehow slipped into the PTS in one of the vendors. It's not even programmed for recalibration, and as a result of this, the metagame in the dark zone is not accurately reflecting what it's going to shape up to be, because everyone's running around with these MG5s, hip firing them, which is just, it's broken. Like, it's got way too high base damage, got way too high RPM, it's got way too high mag size, especially when modded correctly. And in the end, it's a 1.3 gun that's balanced for 1.3 in 1.4, and it's shredding everything with stupid strong bullets, and it's just completely broken. So I can't actually show you, and I don't think many people really can, because everyone's using that, and that's what the metagame is right now in the PTS. I can't show you exactly what it's going to be, but I know it's going to be hectic when it first launches, and there's a few things that I'm going to do and that everyone should do to prepare for that hectic metagame. So one of the things that you need to understand, though, is that the robust chest piece is now going to get use. I don't think it's going to be like the hyper meta, in the spotlight piece of gear. However, it's viable and it works. Now, as you can see in cover, my toughness is 305,000, and my armor mitigation is actually 60% because it hasn't been up to 70%. I'm not exactly sure how the scaling is going to work with that again, but when it does get up to 70%, I'll be in a good position to try out this build, and I have 14,350 armor. So that's enough, I think, to armor cap myself when it moves to 70%, I hope, or at least be damn close. And if it's close, then I can just, tweak a few mods here and there, and then achieve the 70% armor cap, and start to use a build using something like a flame turret on the cover, just a positional build where I tank a ton of damage while I'm in here, and I face trade with anyone that comes close. And I can just start to, land headshots, we'll tank, headshot trade, and then I'll come out on top, because 70% mitigation is not going to be achievable by the average build outside of cover. You're going to have to use things like the robust chest piece or the holster that increases armor by 15% when more than 4 seconds in the same piece of cover, which is really cool, and I like that holster. I think it's good that it decreased from 10% or 10 seconds down to 4 seconds. It might actually see some play now. There's a lot of different avenues of play that are viable. But now moving on to some other tricks that you're going to want to do and employ before the patch. You're going to want to take every single piece of gear that you can in the live game. This doesn't apply to me because this is the PTS and I'm going to lose all this gear very soon anyway. You're going to want to take every single piece of gear that you find and put the mods in it. You want every single piece of gear you have to have 2 mods in it for chest pieces, 1 for the mask, everything. Have everything, every single piece of inventory slot like that you have absolutely consumed. Now, what that means is every single weapon mod that you get, put it in a gun. Try and max out all the weapon mods on all the different guns so that you have just a giant amount of items, a huge amount of items to draw from, because the mods, both weapon and gear, I believe are going to get re-rolled, and they're going to be able to be scrapped for electronics. They're going to sell for more money. There's a lot of different reasons why you just want to be a pack rat before the patch. Now, outside of that, I would say that any new gear that you get in the target, gear set that you want, don't re-roll it. Do not re-roll it, because I'm not sure what their policy is going to be with allowing us to, again, re-roll pieces that we previously had in 1.3, because they've now changed. I don't think that they're going to let us. I think that even if they wanted to, and they probably do want to, but I don't think it's probably technically possible to do that. That's too much. That's a very, hands-on retroactive change, and I don't think it's going to be possible. So what you need to do is get more gear if you possibly can, but don't re-roll it, and wait until the patch actually drops to do that. Another thing that you're going to want to know is that when re-rolling pieces of gear, specifically weapons, I actually got a bunch of questions about this in my previous video because I didn't state it accurately. I think I misspoke at the end there. When you're re-rolling a weapon, you're going to have more choices to choose from. Now, I didn't mean that you could re-roll multiple attributes or multiple talents, but when I re-roll this weapon, let's go here to this classic FAL, and we're going to re-roll competent because I'm not going to activate it probably. We're going to re-roll this over here, and do you see how many choices we get? We actually get 6 plus the additional first choice, which means 7 in total. And 7 talents to choose from means that there's probably some good choices. Like right here, I went from competent, I rolled brutal, I rolled fierce, I rolled skilled, I rolled capable, and I rolled unforgiving. Now to me, it's a toss-up between unforgiving and brutal, and in the end, I think I'm actually going to go for unforgiving over brutal. And I know that some people are going to be like, what? He didn't pick brutal when he rolled it? But I want to talk about now min-maxing characters, specifically with the weapon talents. There's no longer this god roll of brutal, deadly, responsive. That is not the god roll anymore. The god roll now is percent weapon damage bonuses, and maybe something like vicious. Vicious got a change. It now has 10% increased critical hit chance while having more than 2 segments of health, which is really good. And actually pairs beautifully with unforgiving, because missing health segments increase your damage. 1 segment is 10% and 2 segments is 25%. So no matter what, you either have vicious or unforgiving active. So it's a really nice synergistic pairing. And if you pair 3 weapon percentage damage bonuses on top of each other, you get some crazy proportions. So responsive is 10%. Let's say you have competent in the 3rd slot as well. I don't think I have a gun that has it here, but responsive is 10%, competent as well is 10%, so that would be an additional 20%, and then let's say you have unforgiving as well. So that would mean that most of the time, almost 100% of the time, you're going to have a 30% weapon, bonus, unless you're in an overheal or in your first health segment, in which case you only have 20%, because you can still spam, not spam in the traditional sense with triage and multi-procs, but you can still spam skills often enough that you can proc competent whenever you really feel like you need to. So that means that you can constantly have that bonus active. You can constantly be using booster shot if you choose to. You can constantly be having responsive in the current meta where you're running around people. And then every time you lose a health segment, you get another 10%. And then every time you lose 2 health segments, you get 25%. This is huge. This is actually what enables me. I've had some duels with fellow content creators before. Up in the PTS until now. I've been fighting one-on-ones, etc. And Unforgiving is one of the most potent and powerful 1v1 situational talents in the game. Because when they do drop you down to about 1 bar of health or under 1 bar of health, that 25% damage is actually way stronger than even 3 marking them with Sentry. So suddenly you have 25% increased damage that you deal to every target. It's not even situational from one target to the next where you only have it on one and then you can't do it to the other. You deal 25% increased damage to everything. It's unconditional. It doesn't rely on being out of cover. It doesn't rely on any other sort of mechanics like being pulsed or something like that. So suddenly you start to deal massive amounts of damage with an LMG or something like that with high base damage. It really destroys. Essentially in 1v1 scenarios, you're going to become a wrecking ball as soon as they get you down to low health. So that's the new god roll in my eyes, is percent weapon damage bonuses, something like responsive, unforgiving, competent, or maybe even responsive, vicious, competent, or unforgiving, vicious, responsive. All these different combinations are good. Brutal and deadly are still good. You can still use them, but they're not going to be like the ultimate god roll. And in fact, right now, I should reference the fact that JG Creative is here. He is the one that showed me Unforgiving in the beginning when he was using an LMG build with Lone Star, and I would get him down. I was using a Predator's Mark build in our 1v1 scenarios. I was using, Pred Mark, and I would get him down to under 1 bar of health, and then suddenly I would just get floored. I would get melted, and it was because of that 25% increased damage. So when min-maxing a character properly, it's important to look at your weapon talents and how they've changed, because no longer are the specific god rolls from patch 1.3 going to be as relevant. And then it's also important to look at alternative mechanics like robust to increase armor. There's a lot of different things that were on the fringes till now, which are going to see some light and see some play. And then it's really important to look at your gear set pieces. These may be subject to change. I'm not 100% sure. Currently, there's a lot of sets that are a little bit controversial. But looking at all these different gear set bonuses, and then specifically the high-end bonuses like a Tenacious Mask, that's going to be really good as well. And utilizing the proper combination of percent weapon damage bonus increases. Now, mods are very important in 1.4. They're not as critical as they were in 1.3, but there's something very specific to note about mods, and that's mods with armor are the best in slot now. The reason that this is the case is because skill power actually caps out and starts to have diminishing returns, like severe diminishing returns, around 100 to 110,000, which is quite easy to achieve. I don't have it here because I'm not using the right mechanics. If I was using a specialized backpack, as you can see here, I would actually gain 20,000 skill power. Now, the thing is, though, that the diminishing returns that kick in after 100,000 are very severe, and having skill power on your mods is also less effective because they made electronic scale so much better, and they made rolling skill power on your backpack or on your mask less effective. So mods with armor are going to be critical because any small portion of mitigation now is going to be even more effective in PvP, and I anticipate that people are going to roll armor on chest pieces, backpacks, knee pads, and holster. You're going to roll armor. Pretty much any PvP player is going to roll armor on all 4 of these pieces. That's why it's important to get the pieces and not re-roll them, because if you already have re-rolled 4 skill power on a backpack, you're going to see diminished returns from that major attribute. You're going to want to re-roll to armor, and if it's really expensive to do so, then boom, there go all your credits. So everyone's going to be rolling armor, and then mods with armor, preferably stamina mods with armor, are going to help tremendously with toughness, but any mod with armor is going to help a lot to get that higher up there. You're going to go, it's going to be the difference from about 52% mitigation with no mods that have armor to 57 to 58% mitigation if you have all 5 mods with armor. And that's a big difference, and that's going to help a lot in PvP. So min-maxing properly for a PvP build is going to mean having armor on all your mods, probably. There are some other ways you can go with skill haste and things like that. There's a really great video by Marco Style out where, of course, it's an unintended effect. It's an unintended consequence. He actually has negative 3 seconds cooldown, and there's a built-in 2-second cooldown for skills anyway while they come off recharge. But he can basically fire skills as fast as he can press the buttons, and he can just keep shooting heals and keep shooting sticky bombs whenever he feels like. Really cool video. Obviously an oversight. Definitely needs to get patched before the PTS goes live. But it's a really good thing that he brought that to light, and that's, skill haste is going to be relevant, and whether or not they change that, severely and they completely nerf it to the ground will remain to be seen. But fringe builds that don't utilize armor will have a place, but they're not going to be very common, and when perfectly min-maxing for PvP, it's going to be all about armor. I'm sorry, I'm rambling on here. It's definitely going to draw to a close now. It's important, just to go over a few more things, to max out all your different slots, put mods in every single piece of gear, don't re-roll any of your gear, put mods in every single weapon, don't re-roll your weapons because you'll have more choices coming up. Make sure to find weapons that have 2 out of the 3 talents already set with percent weapon damage bonuses. Look for responsive, unforgiving, competent, vicious, all 4 of those. If you have deadly brutal, that's fine too. Those aren't bad guns, but really look for the new version of god rolls. And then overall, just stay tuned for more content. As soon as I get the maxed out vendor, I should be pumping out a lot of builds that hopefully will translate into 1.4 when it goes live and help everyone prepare. So thank you so much for watching. Sorry if this dragged on a lot and if there wasn't that much good information. If you liked the video, please drop a like and drop a comment. If I was wrong about any of the information, please drop a comment as well. And if you want to see more content, drop me a comment with exactly what you'd like to see, and I'll try and produce that for you. Thank you so much for watching, guys, and as always, have a nice day.